Welp, it's official. There will be a 1% sales tax increase ballot referendum on the November 3rd midterm ballot here in Lake County. I've been talking about this for many, many months at this point. I saw it when they first introduced it at the school boards. First saw it back in Waukegan. At least that's when I first got on my radar. So before I go any further, if you're interested in learning about what the bond company said at these proposals, at these meetings to convince school boards to put this on the ballot, there will be a link to this video in the description. I do a deep dive about the presentations that was given to these school boards by these bond companies. You should really watch that if you're interested to know some of the ethically questionable approaches that this bond company took in proposing this. They're the ones who benefit from getting the school boards to put it on the ballot. But I don't want to talk about that right now because I've already talked about it a lot. Let's actually talk about the 1% sales tax increase. So interestingly enough, the Lake County Regional Office of Education, they put together a little website for us, but they didn't finish the website. I don't know if they didn't think anybody would find it or if anybody wouldn't be looking for it. But this is riddled with false information and unusable links. Let me just give you a couple examples here. Frequently asked question. Click here for link. Okay. I don't know what that means. And then I click here. And then it just takes me to youtube.com. Okay. I guess that's cool. And then try this one out. No further explanation, I guess. So let's go here. I'm just a little confused why they put this together. But my favorite part is them citing a alleged study from December of 2026 that showed 52% of purchases in Lake County came from visitors. Now, unless Marty McFly and Doc hopped in the DeLorean, went to December 2026 and conducted this study, I'm not really sure how they would have acquired this information. But let's offer them some grace. Maybe it's a typo. Reasonable. I think that the government agency should probably vet their website before they put it on the internet, considering how riddled it is already, and there's more examples. But 52% of purchases come from visitors from outside the region. I would love to see this study. This is a talking point that the bond companies used when they went to these school board districts claiming that this was the case. But they don't actually cite the study. I would love to see the data because I have a hard time believing that 52% of all purchases come from outside of Lake County. But let's even say that it is true, which I don't think it is. Also, if you're saying this as a government body, you should have to cite your source. But let's say it is true. You know what percent of Lake County residents also shop in Lake County? 100% of them. We all shop in Lake County sometimes. Even if you live right on the border of Wisconsin like myself, and sometimes you go across the border for gas or groceries or what have you, you still probably buy things in Lake County sometimes. So, I mean, this talking point is very misleading. And it's actually very frustrating that they don't give you a source to go to. Because again, if you're a government agency, you should be promoting transparency. And you should be able to say, this is exactly what I'm referring to when I'm talking about this data point. Okay, moving on. They mentioned that 58 of Illinois' 102 counties, including neighboring counties, have this tax. There are no neighboring counties that have this tax. Cook County and McHenry County both do not have this tax implemented. So that is literally a lie. That is just not true. Okay, let's talk about something that they're marketing that I personally think is distasteful and a misrepresentation to voters. As you'll notice right here, this big 0.01 cent sales tax for Lake County schools. This is literally marketing trying to sell the sales tax. Because if I tell you, oh, it's just a penny tax, what are you going to think? Oh, it's just a penny. That it should say plain and clear and simple. This is a 1% sales tax increase. This is a misrepresentation of the tax. Now, I don't have the explicit data for what I'm about to say right in front of me, but I can verify it to some extent, and I will make a separate post about it. But the way that they're spinning this website, or presenting the information rather, is literally a copy and paste from other organizations, other government bodies trying to pass sales taxes. Similar language, for example, the 0.01 cent sales tax, even though it's a 1% sales tax. False claims like other neighboring counties do it, so we should do it too. Similar language talking about McDonald's meals and how haircuts not tax service. Talking about ground beef at Walmart, gasoline, which is taxed, by the way. I feel like they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot there. Maybe I should be their marketing guys. Talking about TV at Best Buy. Similar language about how percentages of purchases come from outside of whatever that county is, which, again, they don't cite that source. You know what's really funny? I was just looking through the presentation, and like I mentioned, they said that neighboring counties have this tax. They even put on their map in the presentation, the white area is areas that don't have this tax. You can see the entire upper right corner of the map. Nobody has this tax. So again, they didn't even think to like cross-check their website, or I don't even know why it's up, to be honest. One argument that was discussed in favor of this tax was that it could lower your property taxes, but even in their FAQ, they said, can this lower my property tax? Possibly. Even though in pretty much every other county that they have introduced this sales tax for, under the guise of it offering property tax relief, property taxes have continued to go up in almost every single instance. So, I mean, that's just not true. It's like when a kid asks their parent, like, can I do something? And your parent just says maybe, just to kind of hold off the argument for a little bit until you inevitably say no. That's exactly what's happening right here. Okay, so I think we've established that the official Lake County Regional Office of Education website about the 1% sales tax is literally incomplete and full of false information and misleading to voters. I think we've established that. I think I've been very fair. Let's go into how much revenue they think this is going to generate. They're claiming, and it's a little hard to see, but it's at the bottom middle column here, F, $121 million within the first year of this tax being introduced. Now, let me just make a quick point before we go any further. This 1% sales tax increase would be the equivalent of a 13.8% increase, okay, for a tax hike. That's if you don't include the 0.25% RTA tax that just went into effect on August 1st. If you include that, that is like 17.8% of an increase in 1 year in your sales tax. That's insane. But okay, $121 million in that first year. If you account for inflation and economic growth, in about 10 years, this is a rough estimate, we're going to say it's about $1.3 billion taken from taxpayers. Over 20 years, you're looking at about a little over $3 billion taken from taxpayers just for this tax. Again, that's 1% of the 8.25%, not including, and that's the minimum sales tax, so that doesn't include areas of Lake County where it would be over 10% for a sales tax. Moving forward, let's take a look at how much educational funding goes into Lake County year over year. So here's the 2024 data. This is all of these schools in Lake County, and you'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner here, in 2024, they took in $1.6 billion worth of spending for all of the schools in Lake County. The average cost per pupil in Lake County is about $22,000, $22,611.36. So we're spending more than the average cost per pupil in Illinois, and we're spending way over the average cost per pupil nationwide. Now, to be fair, depending on where you live in Lake County, the average cost per pupil varies a lot. For example, Lake Villa 41, that's about $13,000. If you live in somewhere like Fox Lake, you're looking at about $19,500 cost per pupil. If you're looking at Stevenson, you're looking at about $27,000 per pupil. And if you're looking at Lake Forest, 115, you're looking at $37,000 for the cost per pupil. So are we getting what we're paying for? Before I get into some of that data, really quickly, let me just mention one thing. In this past year, the Illinois legislators lowered the state standards for math and language arts. So for reference, under the new score cut, 53% of students would be considered proficient in English language arts, which would be up from 41%, and 38% would be proficient in math, up from 28% in the previous year, and 45% would be in science, which is down from last year. Now, so keep that in mind going forward. We literally lowered our standards, which I don't personally support, but we lowered our standards. So all the data we're going to be looking at, just keep that in mind. Lake Villa 41 has the lowest cost per pupil, like I mentioned in the data, and they are about right on target for their ELA academic achievement. And in math, they are slightly under, about 31.6%. Next is Zion, and they're at about 32.5% for their district ELA, which is significantly under. And their math is at 14.1%. Again, significantly under. If we compare that to how much they spend compared to Lake Villa, they spend $21,225 cost per pupil, compared to Lake Villa's, which was $13,365. You're looking at about a $8,000 difference there in cost per pupil, with significantly different results. Again, completely different areas, demographics, different issues in the community. Education's a very complex issue, but I don't like it when people make the argument that funding is how you solve a problem. Throwing money at a problem isn't going to fix something. Just to prove that point a little bit further, Illinois, broadly speaking, spends, I think, the fifth most in the entire nation on education. And here's our, again, this is with the adjusted standards. 53% of students can read at grade level, 38% are proficient in math, 44.6% are proficient in science. Okay, again, that's with the skewed data, skewed standards. In Florida, 61% are proficient in math or in ELA, 62 in math, 60 in science, and then we didn't talk on biology, but this is showing 74%. And then if you look at a state like Mississippi, which I think historically has been trending, well, historically was looked very down upon in their educational standards, but over the last about 10, 15 years, they've seen it skyrocket upwards. Their science is at 64.1%, math at 53.9%, ELA still a little low, 47.5%. But let's compare the funding differences. So, Illinois to Florida, Florida's doing, a little bit better than we are, a lot in some areas. Actually, I would say they're doing significantly better than we are in educational achievement. And Mississippi's actually pretty comparable. I mean, they're above us in science by 20%. Their math is, they're above by 20%. And their reading is slightly below us by 4 percentage points. So I would say that even now, I would say Mississippi is doing better than us. So let's look at that cost per pupil here. This is the same year, so 2024, the data we've been looking at. Illinois, it's actually $21,829 according to this data point for their cost per pupil. And then if we go down, we will find Mississippi at $12,394, and Florida, very similar, $12,415. So they are paying significantly less than we are in their cost per pupil, and they are getting better educational outcomes. So circling back to the sales tax thing, we already put more money into our education system than the vast majority of other states. And yet we are not getting the kind of educational outcomes that we deserve. Throwing more money at this problem isn't going to solve it. An extra 1% sales tax increase isn't going to solve this problem. On top of that, Illinois already has some of the highest combined state and local taxes in the entire nation, and we are tied for first for the highest property taxes in the nation. We cannot afford more tax increases. Literally, they are crushing families. Why do you think more and more families and businesses keep leaving our state every single year? So to recap, very briefly, 1% sales tax is going to be on the ballot this November under the guise of giving property tax relief and helping education. Educational achievement is not directly tied to income. Throwing more money at this problem isn't going to solve anything. On top of all that, the governing bodies in Lake County don't even take us seriously. I mean, like I mentioned, this website, it's riddled with flaws. It's not even completed. There's links that just take you to youtube.com. Click here for link. What is this supposed to mean? You're supposed to be transparent in what the tax referendum is going to be on the ballot. And this is just, I mean, honest to God, this is just embarrassing. So I'm frustrated. I'm personally voting no on the 1% sales tax increase. I hope that you do too. We cannot afford another sales tax increase. We can't afford any more tax increases anywhere in Illinois, but especially in Lake County. So that's all I got for this video. I hope it was at least semi-informative. And let me know in the comments what you think. Are you going to be voting no on this? I know I am.